Hi everybody, welcome to Combat Japan. I'm your host Andres Vergara, and this is the RIZIN 54 preview episode. RIZIN 54 will be taking place on August 11th, 2026 in the Toyota Arena in Tokyo, Japan. Just worth mentioning, that's going to be Tuesday, Japan time. If you're watching stateside like me, that'll be 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so between Monday night and Tuesday morning. That's when it'll be on for us if you want to watch that live. I will be watching the replay of it probably the next day on RIZIN.tv. But yeah, kind of interesting that they're choosing to hold an event on a Tuesday. I believe it's a Japanese national holiday, which is why they're doing that on a Tuesday. You'd imagine that that would hurt their overall international ratings, I would imagine. Monday, middle of the night, work week, it's got to be a little hard to get eyeballs on that. So, all right, so with that out of the way, we're going to be looking at the card top to bottom. We're going to look at every single match. We're going to do some picks, some analysis, and go from there. So with that, let's get started at the top of the card. One moment here. All right, so starting at the top of the card, RIZIN 54 will be headlined in a featherweight bout between the veteran Kleber Koike and the Japanese phenom Kyoma Akimoto. This is not a title fight, but it does have title implications. I believe the winner of this will be at least, first or second in line to face off against the current champion, Razavali Shadoulayev. Kleber Koike from Brazil is an established veteran. He's a former RIZIN featherweight champion. He is a submission specialist. His record is 36-9-1. He's coming off of a unanimous decision win over Vugar Karamov. I believe that was New Year's Eve. And he's 36 years old. He is the real deal when it comes to submission grappling. 30 out of his 36 wins are all by submission. So he is an expert in submission grappling. And then on the other side, we have Kyoma Akimoto, who's like a rising superstar from Japan. He just turned 20 years old. He's coming to us with a 12-1 record off of a 5-5 win streak. He's only 20 years old. He's just coming off of beating Patchy Mix via TKO in round 2 and just has a ton of hype behind him. He's a protege of Japan's most popular fighter, Mikuru Asakura. They train together in Japan Top Team. The majority of his wins come from knockout, and his only loss is a decision loss to Yuki Motoya at a much lighter weight. Yuki fights at 125. And you got to keep in mind, Kyoma just turned 20 years old. He was a teenager, a few months ago. So he's been kind of growing into his size and just really thriving. So he's somebody to watch out for. Okay, so looking at Kleber Koike's chances of winning this fight, I think he must rely on his A game 100%. I feel like this matchup is what the Patchy Mix Kyoma Akimoto match was kind of built to be, which was like a grappler versus a striker. In fact, Patchy Mix in like the lead up for their previous match kept saying stuff like, I'm going to wrap this kid up, I'm going to, choke him or whatever. And Patchy ended up just kickboxing Kyoma for, a round and a half and looked really slow and kind of just awful. And didn't really shoot a takedown until like the end of round 1, and at which point he had already been beaten up quite a bit. So actually, I think it almost got stopped at the end of round 1 because Patchy went for a takedown, failed, and just kept getting knee to the head. But he made it onto round 2, and Kyoma was able to just outstrike him. But anyway, the reason I'm talking about that is because that was advertised as like grappler versus striker, and I feel like this is the actual version of that. Kleber Koike is 110% a grappler. He's got, decent striking, but it's not gonna win him the fight, right? He's looking for a submission. So in order for Kleber to have a chance of winning here, he must rely on his jiu-jitsu. He has to tie up, immediately look for a takedown of any kind, and just play his A game. He should not do what Patchy did and try to kickbox Kyoma Akimoto. Kyoma is a very high-level striker, and that's where he kind of thrives. Do not do that if you're Kleber. Kleber is really persistent with like leg kicks, especially to the front leg of his opponent. So I think he could rely on that to kind of keep Kyoma at bay. So like as Kyoma finds his range, he can just attack the legs and maybe frustrate him, and then either tie him up with some sort of collar tie and body lock type of thing, or just straight up, if you're getting worked, just try and pull guard, because Kleber works very well off of his back. He's got a ton of triangle finishes, arm bars. If he's getting cooked, I believe kind of pulling guard might be one of the safest things he could do, and he can implement his game from the bottom. He's just so good at jiu-jitsu, he doesn't care if he's on bottom. He'll just sweep you and or attack from the bottom. So that's kind of the keys to victory, in my opinion, for Kleber Koike. Going back to Kyoma, though, Kyoma must avoid the ground at all costs. So he's got to, do what he does, which is like find his range and strategically and systematically break down his opponent. Kyoma is not like he's not like a bat out of hell, like coming out and just like overwhelming you. He's very like selective with his strikes, and he must be doing that kind of work against Kleber, because if he gets too careless and rushes in, he might get taken down and submitted. So in my opinion, Kyoma must maintain the range. If Kleber gets too close, he's got to back up. Do not let Kleber get a hold of him. Once in range, he just has to leverage his superior striking and look for a KO finish. Kleber 100% will try to be either too far away to get hit or too close. And Kyoma must maintain that mid-range where he can be effective with his striking. I think that Kyoma has all the momentum behind him at this point. A lot of hype and youth on his side. He's only 20 years old versus Kleber being 36. So this could go either way, but I am going to pick Kyoma Akimoto to win this fight. I'm going to do via TKO. So that is my pick for the main event. Moving on down to the co-main, or chief support. All right, we already spoke about him already. So we have Patchy Mix versus veteran Shoko Sato. Patchy Mix is moving down to bantamweight, so he just fought at featherweight and lost to Kyoma Akimoto. He's moving back down to 135, and he's facing off against veteran Shoko Sato. Shoko Sato is coming off of a win against John Sweeney via triangle choke. That was a brutal beating. It was like a mounted triangle, and on top of that, he had cut up Sweeney like really bad. He was bleeding everywhere. But anyway, Shoko Sato is 38-17 with 2 no contests. 38 years old. Patchy Mix is 20-4, coming off of 3 losses in a row, with the last one being Kyoma Akimoto TKOing him. He's 32 years old. Patchy Mix is a former Bellator bantamweight tournament champion. He kind of just tore through everybody, just kept choking people and just looked unstoppable. Once Bellator merged with the PFL, Patchy Mix got out of that contract and was able to have a short stint in the UFC where he went 0-2. He did not look very great. He was being touted as one of the best bantamweights in the world, and unfortunately he was unable to live up to that standard. And then we have the UFC release him, and then he makes his RIZIN debut earlier this year and loses to Kyoma Akimoto via TKO. A lot of questions remain about Patchy. He honestly looked incredibly slow, gassed. He's not doing his A game, so it's not. Sometimes like you might not be as fast as you were. You might be deconditioned to some degree, but you still have smart fight IQ. And I feel like Patchy Mix is just making questionable choices on top of looking kind of tired and slow. If you look at this fight on paper, right, you get a 32-year-old younger, 20-4, a much better record than 38-17. On paper, Patchy Mix looks like he will win this fight, right? But when you actually watch the fights and you watch his last 3 losses, he's honestly not looking so great. I don't know if he's been dealing with an injury and kind of hiding it. Or there's just something about him that is not the same person that ran through everybody in the Bellator bantamweight tournament. So anyway, just something to keep in mind. Let's talk Shoko Sato for a bit. So Shoko has a bunch of KO wins. He's I got 20 KO/TKO wins, but none of those have come recently. So if you actually look at his record, he was like KOing, TKOing people before he was in RIZIN. So like at lower level promotions. He was just kind of running through everybody, and then he went through like a little Ogi Kubo stint where he got like 8 or 9 decision fights in a row, whether he won or lost. I think most of them went his way, but he is a very well-rounded fighter, extremely tough and very, very experienced. And in the Sweeney fight, you saw that he is really good with elbows and knees. I think he should kind of rely on that to beat Patchy. Patchy's nose got all jacked up from the last Kyoma fight. I don't know if he has scar tissue from before, but it was just so easily cut up and just bleeding everywhere. I think if Shoko Sato can, one, keep it off the ground if possible, which should be easy if Patchy fights the same way as he did last time, and just basically rely on some clinching, knees and elbows, he might be able to open him up and just kind of finish him from there. Essentially, I think Shoko Sato's best chance here is to keep it up striking and blitz appropriately. So like put on the pressure strategically. Don't just gas yourself out. Overwhelm Patchy with your strikes and see how he reacts. Definitely leverage the, I guess what they call the superior rule set, where you can knee grounded opponents and you can soccer kick. Patchy was really susceptible to that against Kyoma. I mean, obviously he knows the rules, but I maybe you're just not used to it. But like if they're on the ground, just knee the hell out of their head and go from there. And then for Patchy, He has to stop trying to kickbox everybody. Like, rely on your A game. Much like Kleber Koike, you're a submission specialist. I think 13 of his wins are from submissions. So you got to take it to the ground and wrap this guy up, like you said you would do with Kyoma Akimoto. Like, also, he needs to be more defensively sound. Like make sure you're not taking a ton of damage as you work for your takedowns, and be able to just go in there and get the submission win that you are known for. Also, worth looking into, will Patchy's return to bantamweight give him better cardio? I think he looked a little tired the last few times I've seen him. I wonder if kind of getting that body weight down, getting leaner is going to help him just have better endurance throughout the fight. But with all that being said, man, given that I just haven't been very impressed with Patchy, and I wish him the best, of course, as an athlete, but I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna pick Shoko Sato on this one as well. I feel like he will come in and perhaps overwhelm Patchy. Not much else to say. It could go either way, obviously, but I'm picking Shoko Sato to win this one via TKO. All right, moving on. All right, so this fight should be a freaking banger. We have two strikers that are just like no nonsense, just come to brawl. We have Japan's Yuki Ito coming into this against Alibek Godzamatov. Yuki Ito, he's coming into this at 20-7. His last fight was a round 1 TKO against Carlos Mota. He's only 29 years old. And then on the other side, we have Alibek Godzamatov. He's 6-1. His only loss coming from his last fight against Hiramoto Ogikubo. He's only 25 years old. And that one loss was a surprise, surprise, a decision loss against Ogikubo. But other than that, he's basically just finished everybody via KO or TKO. So I know he's a lot less experienced, he only being 6-1, with 5 out of those 6 wins being finishes. I think this should be a real fun fight. All right, so back to Yuki Ito. He's primarily a striker, and it is worth mentioning both of these guys were part of the 125-pound Grand Prix last year. Yuki Ito ended up getting voted out of the bracket, which was some weird thing that they did. And then Alibek ended up losing to the winner of the tournament, which was Ogikubo. But yeah, back to Yuki. So Yuki's primarily a striker. It's not that he can't wrestle. He just very much struggles with wrestlers. He's lost 2 times to Ursun Yamamoto. He's lost to the current flyweight champion Shinryu. He just doesn't do really great against wrestlers that are going to pick him up and kind of control him the whole time. He's very much a striker. He's looking for that KO finish. I think Yuki's key to victory here is to, 1, do not get taken down, keep it on the feet. He has to be smooth. He could look for a head kick finish like he did in the Moto fight. But most importantly, do not tie up with Godzamatov in any way. Don't let him get to your body or get taken down. Then on the other side, we have Godzamatov. Like, for somebody that has a lot of KO finishes, right, you would expect him to be kind of more of a kickboxing style fighter, but he's actually got really good wrestling control and takedowns. Like in the Soya fight, he had a lot of good body locks and mat returns, the kind of stuff you'd expect from a wrestler, but he's actually finishing people with it. So I think Yuki kind of being more of a kickboxer style, more fluid. Godzamatov needs to really get in there and shut that down and just kind of make it ugly and just beat the hell out of him. And use his power. Essentially, try to like stuff the kickboxing, stuff all the the fancy striking by getting real close and just ground and pound and looking for a finish that way. But either way, given that both of these guys rack up KO finishes, I think this will be a hell of a fight. Super excited to see this one. And I think this is it for the main card. We did lose one bout between Kate Lotus and Noel. I believe Kate Lotus had some sort of injury. I forgot what that was, but it got postponed. So it will not be part of the RIZIN 54 main card. And then once again, this fight was going to be at super atomweight. Because the current champion Sakai has vacated the belt, and they're doing this what they call an invisible tournament, where they're picking who they like best to kind of fight for the belt, and on New Year's Eve this year, the vacant super atomweight belt. But unfortunately, we do not get that fight in this card. So with that in mind, we'll move on to the next. Oh, sorry, I got to pick someone. So I'm going to pick Alibek Godzamatov to win this fight. I foresee a stoppage finish, TKO, from Godzamatov. All right, moving on. All right, the big boys. All right, so this year RIZIN announced that they were going to be doing a heavyweight tournament Grand Prix, and this is a part of that tournament. We have Mikio Ueda and King Edok Polo both from Japan. Ueda comes to us with a 5-3 record. He's 31 years old. He's coming off of a loss against Alexander Soldotkin. I believe that was a round 1 or maybe round 2 TKO. King Edok Polo, he's 2-0. He's beaten Taka Kenshin and Ryo Sakai, who's also on this card as part of the heavyweight tournament. All right, so let's talk Ueda real quick. So Ueda is 6'2". He's a heavyweight. He's surprisingly light on his feet for a heavyweight. If you actually watch him, he's kind of like bouncing up and down and moving, fairly fast. He relies heavily on strong leg kicks. He attacks the front leg of his opponent. In fact, he actually got a stoppage from leg kicks prior to his Soldatkin fight. I forget who his opponent was, but it was literally like a stoppage from leg kicks because the guy couldn't stand anymore. He's good at throwing teeps as well. He's very good at anything that involves like bringing your hips forward. But the other side of that token, he's also like really odd when he punches because this is something I noticed watching tape on him. Like normally when you punch, you kind of want to sit into it and maybe put some weight behind it, right? He punches like this. So like imagine you're throwing a teep where you want to like bring your hips forward like that. He does that with punches. So it's like he does the weird lean back punch. So it's gotta like, I would imagine it has to take power away from the punch if I'm punching like this. So every time I punch, I back up as I do it. So that's all to say that he's, in my opinion, not a great boxer, but he's a very good kicker. Also has, very good speed. Speaking of kicks, he actually finished Tsuyoshi Sudario, who's in the next fight after this, via head kick. And that was maybe a little of an early stoppage, but he will kick the shit out of you, whether it's your head, body, or leg. You got to really watch out for that. And looking at the other side, we have King Edok Polo. He is huge. He's 6'8", so he's like the size of an NBA player. Very lean. So like obviously you can tell from this photo that Ueda packs on some of it in body fat on top of being athletic, but he's only 6'2". And then you have Edok Polo fighting a heavyweight, and he's 6'8", and he is a one tall guy. And what I like about him is that he actually uses his range. And there's nothing that is more annoying than like a very rangy guy that fights like a small guy. Like you have this range, use it, and he does. So he'll like jump in with jabs, like where he's not in danger, but only he can reach you. He'll throw teeps. He'll throw kicks from far enough away that he won't get touched, but you will. So I think he effectively uses his range. He also is in really good shape, like because of the lack of body fat, and he's a very lean, just athletic big guy. I think he has better cardio than most heavyweights. So I think he's probably going to come in this and out cardio Ueda. One other thing worth mentioning about Edok Polo, he throws some killer knees to the body because he's so rangy. Like a kick from him would be like a teep from me because his legs are huge. So he does a lot of damage that way as well. So keys to victory here for Edok Polo, he must check leg kicks. Ueda 100% will throw leg kicks like a maniac. Every fight I've seen Ueda in, he's like spamming leg kicks. If Edok Polo's mobility gets compromised and he can't move around, then he's probably going to lose. So he must be aware of those leg kicks and be able to check them appropriately. I also think he needs to leverage his cardio endurance. I could see Ueda getting gassed by round 2 or 3 if this goes that far. So he should be able to outlast him and just be faster and more explosive throughout the fight, especially as it goes on. And then lastly, I think he really needs to leverage the fact that he has a crazy range, and Ueda kind of just backs up a lot without actually moving his feet. He leans back, and if he keeps leaning back at punches from Edok Polo, I think he should maybe opt for some sort of overhand right, or I forget if he's orthodox or southpaw, but like if the cool thing about the overhand right is that it's a punch that's it goes further than a jab or a cross would a lot of the time. So if somebody's like feels like they have the range and they know exactly how far to lean back, if you lean in and throw an overhand right, you might catch them as they're leaning back because they're not moving their feet. So that's all to say, just use your range and use your cardio as a weapon against Ueda, and watch out for those kicks. And then for Ueda, I think he should not box. The lean back style of punching is just not that effective. He needs to rely on those kicks. If he's getting beaten up at range, he might want to start some sort of grappling exchange. I don't know how good Ueda is on the ground, but he's at a big size disadvantage in this matchup. But with all that being said, I am picking King Edok Polo to win this, and I'm going to do by TKO as well. They've all been TKO so far, I think. All right, moving on. All right, so here's the second match of the heavyweight Grand Prix I was talking about, and this is Tsuyoshi Sudario from Japan versus Ryo Sakai, also from Japan. We just saw Sakai fight Sudario's brother, Taka Kenshin, and he got finished in round one via TKO. Both Sudario and Taka Kenshin, the brothers, the heavyweight brothers, were in professional sumo, and I talked about Taka Kenshin on I think it was the Landmark 14 preview, but essentially, I love sumo, and I talked about how Taka Kenshin made it to Division 1 sumo, the Makuuchi division, which is just like world class, like the best of the best make it there. Sudario did not make it as far as Taka Kenshin. He actually made it to Juryo 5, which is he was the fifth ranked wrestler in Division 2, which is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, that's still, salaried sumo in professional sumo, so that's legit. And I think he might have won a championship in the Makushita division, which is Division 3. So he comes to us with a sumo background, just as his brother does, Taka Kenshin. Unlike Taka Kenshin, however, Sudario does have a better MMA record. He's 9-4. He's coming off of a unanimous decision loss against Jose Augusto. He is 29 years old. Ryo Sakai is 10 years older, 39, and he is coming mostly from fighting in deep. He's a big brawler, tough guy. But I've talked about this with the fight against Taka Kenshin. He's only 5'11". Like, I'm 5'11". I don't weigh 265. I feel like a lot of it is just kind of extra body fat, and that's probably not ideal when you're talking about, top tier MMA athletes. But yeah, Ryo Sakai is a 500 fighter. He's 15-15, and as I mentioned earlier, his last fight was a loss to Sudario's brother Taka Kenshin via KO. Kind of the keys to victory here, in my opinion: copy exactly what Taka Kenshin did, Sudario. Like, literally watch that fight and do exactly the same thing. You just need to overwhelm him with your athleticism. You're faster, you're more explosive. Look for a TKO. I think if you land any clean shot on Sakai, he's probably going to go down. This sounds like I'm being extremely harsh on Sakai, but I just don't think he should be a heavyweight. And then keys to victory for Sakai on this one: he needs to be more defensively sound. He can't come into this thinking this is going to be a brawl. You need to be very strategic. You need to watch out for Sudario's round punches. Sudario throws a lot from his right side, so he throws a lot of round punch haymakers from the back. So whether it's a hook or a cross, or he'll throw like really high, surprisingly high kicks to the head. I wonder if it's because of the sumo shiko stomping, but he has Sudario has a lot of flexibility with his legs, and he's also very light on his feet, much like Ueda. And like I mentioned earlier, he lost to Ueda via head kick. In my opinion, it was a little bit of an early stoppage. I feel like he got dropped 100%, and then they were like, okay, it's over, and he was like, what the hell? But anyway. Yeah, I think Sakai, if he wants to win, he needs to, one, don't rush in like he did against Taka Kenshin. He basically rushed in and just got clocked. Two, he needs to somehow compensate for the fact that he's just much smaller. So I would honestly opt for some sort of grappling exchange instead of dealing with a guy that's much bigger than you and is trying to knock you out. So if I were Ryo Sakai, I would, one, not rush in, and two, maybe get some sort of body lock and try and work some ground and pound, kind of neutralize the size factor there. But with all that being said, I predict a win for Sudario via TKO in round one, much like his brother did. His brother Taka Kenshin beat Ryo Sakai. All right, moving on. Okay, we have a featherweight bout between Kazumasa Majima and Koji Takeda. They're both from Japan. They're both grappling specialists. Much more so, in my opinion, Majima. If you watch Majima, he's coming to us with a 19-6 record. His last win was over the Irish prospect James Gallagher via round 3 head and arm triangle. If you watch Majima, he pretty much does not do any stand-up striking at all. So like, he will not kickbox. He's just gonna shoot for the legs or go for some sort of takedown, and that makes a ton of sense given his finishing stats. 16 out of his 19 wins are by submission. He's trying to choke you or break a limb. That's what he does. He's a very I don't want to say one-dimensional, but he's very much specialized in just grappling. Whereas Koji Takeda comes into this at 19-8. He's also very much a grappler, but not not really a finisher like Majima. Out of his 19 wins, only 6 of them are by submission. So he's using grappling in a different way. He's using grappling to control. He's using grappling to set up ground and pound. But he is a very, very experienced grappler as well. But he's much more well-rounded than Majima, in my opinion. So he's actually going to be able to strike with you. Like Majima's stand-up game is basically non-existent, in my opinion. Whereas Takada will actually stand and bang with somebody. Like he beat Victor Kolesnik via unanimous decision and was able to show that he can strike. He can hang in there with somebody that is a kickboxer, but also he's able to wrestle you to the ground and control you there as well. So kind of looking at some of the keys to victory here for Majima, I think he 100%, I think he needs to go to the ground and look for a sub. Majima does strike. I mean, I said he doesn't strike on the feet, which is true, but he does do a lot of ground and pound, and he's always looking to set up a submission finish, and I think that's what he should do, whether he's in Takada's guard or just find a way to bring it down to the ground, set up some sort of submission by opening him up with ground and pound, and look for some sort of choke. Majima actually has 7 or 8 rear naked chokes on his record, so he'd probably be looking for an opening for that. And then Takada has to nullify Majima's grappling. So Majima is going to try to take him down, and I think Takada needs to just nullify it, do defensive grappling and stay on the feet and just take advantage of the fact that he actually has a stand-up game, and he should either look for a KO finish or enough to come away with an easy decision win. But he must really stuff Majima's takedown attempts. So with all that being said, given that he's more well-rounded, and I think he's probably just a better overall mixed martial artist, I'm going to have to go with Takada to win this. And I'm going to say via decision over Majima. But who knows? You know, Majima could get his 9th rear naked choke and get this victory as well. But I'm officially picking Takada to win via decision. All right. Next. All right, so we have another striker's delight here at 135 pounds between Joji Goto from Japan and Azizbek Temirov from Uzbekistan. Both of these guys are strikers primarily. Joji Goto is more of what you would think of as it's more of a smooth kickboxing style stand-up game, whereas I feel like Temirov is more of a power type. He's not as slick, but he's just kind of throwing haymakers and just really, really trying to finish. Worth mentioning for Temirov, like all 6 of his wins were either KO or TKO stoppage, and his 2 losses have been decision losses. Yeah, for someone like Temirov, I feel like it works a lot best for him if he can finish somebody and overwhelm them like in round 1 or 2. Or as soon as it goes to the scorecards and it turns into a longer fight, he kind of loses a little bit of that pace because, like I said, he comes out and he's very, very aggressive and he's trying to finish you. Whereas somebody like Joji Goto is a lot more technical and he will pace himself and look for counters. Joji Goto has a lot of great angles. He has really great footwork and he'll kind of constantly be switching on you. He's very slick. He has a really nice overhand left. He also throws like this weird like looping punch that'll go around people's guard. So if they go like this, he'll come around. So if I'm here, he'll punch around the guard and get you on the side of the ear there. He has some great head kicks as well. And he also punishes the body. He throws a lot of hooks to the body and just kind of, do some really slick like kickboxing type of style stuff. Whereas Temirov is like, I'm going to knock your head off type of striking. And that does come at a cost. I think it does come with the potential of getting gassed out and, losing a decision because all 2 of his losses are by decision. So he either is knocking people out or losing decisions. So it's kind of an interesting matchup there. So keys to victory here for Joji Goto. I think he needs to conserve his energy. He needs to be very elusive. So very, very defensively sound because I think Temirov is going to try and take his head off. And if he's able to use his slickness and get out of the way and just let him gas out, I think he could look for a late stoppage here. Essentially use technique over just pure power, especially once Temirov gets a little gassed out from kind of going all out and trying to finish the fight early. And then on the other side of things, Temirov needs to come in and kind of double down and just try to overwhelm Goto, right? So if he can come in and just overwhelm him with like blitzing and just like, I'm going to just go through you, he might be able to get a quick finish, which he's been able to do his entire career up until now. So be the aggressor and try to finish early. That's what I think is the key to victory here for Temirov. With all that being said, I am picking Temirov to win this, and I think he will finish it in round 1 via TKO stoppage. All right, moving on. All right, so we have a matchup here at 125 pounds between Joe Hiramoto from Japan and Jolly from Japan. I also found out he's half Filipino. Joe Hiramoto comes into this at 3-2 with his latest fight being a rear naked choke win. He's got an interesting background because he's Ren Hiramoto's younger brother, Ren being the K1 star that transitioned over to RIZIN. And Joe Hiramoto has a striking background, but if you look at his record, he has 0 KO finishes, and his last one was a rear naked choke, so that's kind of interesting. And he's going against Jolly, who is an undefeated fighter. He's 4-0, 2-0 in RIZIN, 2 arm bars back to back within the first minute or so. And before that, he had 2, I believe, TKO finishes. One might have been a doctor stoppage. Jolly comes into this being kind of an awkward fighter. His footwork is just really odd. And he's been able to just basically pull guard and get 2 armbar finishes in RIZIN. But I think going into this, Hiramoto is probably going to be the better striker. Let's talk about Hiramoto real quick. So some of his attributes. As I mentioned, he's Ren Hiramoto's younger brother. He is a striker, but let's talk about that rear naked choke finish I talked about. It was horrible. Like, what I mean by that, like, he didn't have his hooks in at first, and then he kind of got one in. I think his opponent was just like, didn't know how to get out of it. But it wasn't like really properly set up as you would expect. I'm only mentioning this because I think that Hiramoto has a lot of heart. In fact, in his last fight where he did get that rear naked choke against Amayama, he was getting his ass kicked. Like, it looked like they were about to stop it. Just completely getting outstruck and just getting rocked. And honestly, if it were in the stateside, they might have stopped the fight. But I feel like RIZIN, they're a lot more lenient in, how far they let you go. But anyway, long story short, he's able to bounce back. He has a lot of heart, good chin. He was never knocked out, but he's showed a lot of heart and the ability to recover. So that is something you must have as a fighter. But I just don't think he's particularly skilled in really any facet of he is a good striker, but like, he doesn't have like finishing ability. Like, he's not knocking anybody out. And when it comes to grappling, right, he got that really, really bad rear naked choke on Amayama. And then in a previous fight against Daichi Tomizawa, he had a full-on locked-in rear naked choke with both hooks on the legs, arm under the chin right here. And instead of, doing this grip here, he was kind of doing this, and just poor mechanics like made it so he lost that rear naked choke. It was like fully sunk in. So I just don't think he's like has great grappling either. He's not knocking anybody out. It could be a function of the fact that he's 125. But whereas you look at Jolly, right? Jolly has he's 4-0 and he's finished everybody. So we know he has good finishing mechanics, particularly with arm bars. I think Jolly will probably not choose to kickbox Hiramoto here and probably take it to the ground. So with all that being said, I think Jolly will take this. So I'm picking Jolly to win via probably submission. But I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls something out of his hat. He's just an awkward fighter. But he's interesting and he's got some pretty good dance moves. So if you want to check out RIZIN's Instagram, you'll see Jolly dancing there. So I'm going with Jolly on this one. Yeah. All right, moving on. All right, so we have here a catchweight bout at 152 pounds between Naoki and Isa Hosokawa. So they're both from Japan. Naoki comes into this at 3-2 and 1 no contest. His last win was against Kaisei Kuroi, which I covered in this channel before. This was the crazy armbar escape where Kuroi had this like locked in armbar. It looked like he was about to break Naoki's arm, and Naoki stands up and just shakes him off and is able to turn it around and just basically just knock the hell out of Kuroi last minute there. Really, really cool fight. A little bit about Naoki. He was the former Rise lightweight champion, so he's a kickboxer. He has a ton of experience in striking. He's a bit of a showman. He comes in, with like the weird Jabberwocky masks and doing dances and stuff. He, has a ton of experience in striking, but his MMA career hasn't been so great. He's, 3-2 in 1 no contest, so he's, slightly over 500. But on the other side of this, you have his opponent Hosokawa, who is making his MMA debut. So this guy is 0-0. He does have one fight in RIZIN in kickboxing, which he lost to, I think, via body shots. So he's 0-1 in kickboxing and untested in MMA. Let's talk about Naoki and how he can win this fight. I think Naoki should really rely on his A game being striking. I know that they both have that striker background, but Naoki's at a different level. Like he was actually a champion of Rise, which is like an established kickboxing organization, whereas Hosokawa, just doesn't seem to have that pedigree of striking, even though that's what he specializes in, supposedly. So I think Naoki should just basically go in there and try to kickbox Hosokawa. And if for whatever reason he feels like he's getting outstruck or he's in trouble, he can fall back on some of the MMA training because he does have a submission win. Even his defensive grappling is really good, like when he was able to get out of that armbar with Kuroi. So given the fact that Naoki is a much better striker and also has been training MMA longer and has a rear naked choke finish, I think he should be able to finish this fight. I am picking Naoki to win, by the way, so that is my pick. But let's talk about Hosokawa real quick and how he could win. I think Hosokawa needs to leverage the MMA rule set and do stuff that he can't do in kickboxing that kind of win, right? Because if it's a pure kickboxing match, Naoki will win 100%. But if he's able to basically grab Naoki and hold him, do a tie clinch, any sort of control that's going to like prevent Naoki from being in his range and being able to unload will be advantageous for Hosokawa. He should be able to, do some sort of clinch work, press against the ropes. Anything to kind of stop Naoki's movement, I think is advantageous. And I also think Hosokawa needs to rely on just power shots and hope for a knockout finish. But whatever he does, he should not just have a kickboxing match against Naoki. He will lose. But I am picking Naoki to win. And you know what? I could see this going all the way to decision. So I'm going to pick a decision win for Naoki. He's just a better MMA fighter overall. Okay, moving on. All right, so this is the curtain jerker of the whole card and also the last fight we'll talk about. It is a 145-pound fight between Arata Mizuno and China's Kaiwen Lee. Arata Mizuno is coming into his RIZIN debut. He's never fought for RIZIN. He is 9-1, his last win being a unanimous decision over Ushiko Juntaro over in Deep. He's actually the Deep interim bantamweight champion. So he's kind of testing the waters here at the premier MMA organization in Japan, RIZIN. Kaiwen Lee comes into this at 16-8. His last fight was in RIZIN, and it was his RIZIN debut, and it was a loss to Ryo Takagi. It was a round 1 TKO. He's 30 years old. Kaiwen Lee has a ton of experience. He actually fought in the road to UFC. I believe he went 3-2 there. So he's fought all over the world. He has a lot of wrestling experience, but he's not afraid to stand and bang either. So he throws a lot of power shots and just kind of like, in my opinion, gets a little careless with his striking. But he is a very gifted athlete as well. So let's talk Kaiwen Lee real quick. So he is a wrestler, as I mentioned, but his striking is just extremely aggressive. He's kind of reminds me of Temirov. He's just going to go in there and just kind of throw heat. He's not like super technically like slick, but he's in there to try and hurt you. And that style can kind of work against him, right? Because if you're kind of overcommitting and just going all out, sometimes you can get countered pretty easily. And that's what happened in his last fight. He got TKO'd after, putting a really good effort against Takagi. So I think he can get a bit careless there. And also he didn't rely on any of his wrestling pedigree at all. He was just trying to stand and bang, which I think is a mistake. So I think going into this fight, he should actually rely on his wrestling quite a bit more. Try and be more thoughtful with his strikes. You don't want to like take someone's head off with every single strike. Just because if you miss and you get countered, that's bad, or you could just get gassed. So I think he should just look for a takedown and rely on ground and pound to kind of finish the fight or just get a decision win. And then when we look at Mizuno here, he's 9-1. He's a lot more slick. He's more of a tactician than like a big brawler, although he is a very gifted striker. I think he reminds me a little bit of Kyoma Akimoto, if I'm being honest, where he's very selective with what he does. He's not going to try and take your head off, but he will counter you. He will strategically blitz when appropriate. So in my opinion, the way he beats Kaiwen is one, avoid being taken down. Kaiwen is a grappling threat. Maintain his range and avoid big shots. So Kaiwen might come in with like a lot of heat. You got to make sure you get out of the way of those and look for counters. So if Mizuno is able to counter Kaiwen coming in hot and is able to catch him off guard, he might be able to pull off a counter finish sequence. So I think just being very aware that there will be takedowns coming and then just power shots. If you can be defensively sound there and counter strike when appropriate, I actually can see Mizuno taking this as well, which is why I'm going to go with Mizuno to win this via TKO stoppage. This one also could go either way. I think it's really good matchmaking in my opinion, but I think there's more momentum coming with Mizuno. There's also the age factor. Mizuno is only 23. I mean, Kaiwen Lee is only 30 years old. It's not, super old, but I don't know, he's got a lot of miles on him, and I think he can be just a little too reckless for my liking. So I'm going to go with Mizuno to win via stoppage. All right, so we'll switch back here. All right, so that is the preview for RIZIN 54, which will be taking place on August 11th in the Toyota Arena in Tokyo, Japan. Again, it's going to be on a Tuesday, so it'll be a weird time for all of us here stateside, but I will for sure be watching and reacting to this. So my next video will be a reaction video to the card, summary, recap, analysis, and all that. But yeah, you can watch it at RIZIN.tv. If you get a subscription, I think you can pay for individual events or just pay for like a year-long pass type thing. But let me know who you think will win, right? Who do you got in the main event? Is there anybody you're excited to see? I want to hear more about what you guys have to say. But yeah, that's it. I guess we'll catch you in the next one. And thank you all for watching, and for all of you that subscribe. It really means a lot to me. So I really appreciate it. So that's it. All right, catch you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.